and it is far from being divisive. It actually unites Catholics across centuries and across today in the modern world, across nations and races. So what's behind this?
Right.
Why
That's
are
the
they
question.
doing that? The reason is because the Rosary and all kinds of spiritual things have always had a battle type of imagery with it. And they're using that to label Catholics and Christians who talk about this in spiritual battle imagery and language as extremists. And this is the beginning. It sounds funny at first, but this is the first step for laying the foundation of calling them radicals, extremists, and alienating them from the public square, taking them out of the public square.
We only have a minute. What's the purpose behind it? Why do they want to call, traditional Catholics extremists?
For the same reason they wanted to call parents who were fighting back at school boards domestic terrorists. It's to silence you. It's to make you feel like if you speak out, your livelihood, your reputation will be on the line. It's to take you out of the public square. And so the reaction to this from Christians across America should be to do the opposite. Commit to fighting in the public square for religious liberty and commit to praying, because that's also how we're going to get there.
You know what? Marxists throughout history, when you have a state, what do you do to people of faith?
Absolutely. There is a long history of this. So the first thing that the Marxists, the communists do is they attack religion. They have to get rid of it. And by extension, they also want to get rid of family bonds, all because the family and religion are threats to the authoritarian state.
You know what? This is the first story you told me about this morning. It's serious, and we shouldn't laugh at it. Right? Good to see you.
Can I give you one last word, Sean?
Quickly.
Bishop Fulton Sheen, also an extremist Rosary person, said that if you're going to make it outlaw believing in God, then we should all stand up and be criminals.
Someone said my mama wears combat boots.
That's right.
That's extremist. All right.
He said, if the new crime is believing in God, let us all be criminals.
I can't cancel her.
I can't. I'm
she gets to talk as long as she wants. All right. Thank you. All right. Trouble brewing in Hollywood.
Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Ross. How you doing?
I'm good. We're winging it this morning.
Yeah. We had other plans, but didn't work out.
That's all right. That's the way God works, huh?
Yeah. What do you think about this story?
It's just so easy in politics, in life in general, to just call names rather than try to argue the facts of things. And I still think I'm kind of old-fashioned with this, but I think we need to talk whenever we're talking to somebody about this. We try to stay away from the epithets and being called racist and being called extremist, and just say, what is your issue with this? And try to get to an argument that is talking about the facts of it.
Yeah. I read the article that the guy wrote. He's from the Atlantic, which I don't read them that often, but they had it in the Gateway Pundit, so I decided to go over and read it and see what it was all about. And he compares the Rosary to an AR-15 and being a symbol of Christian nationalism. And the other thing is that first thing I thought was like, this is kind of an attack on not only on Catholics, but also on Hispanics, because majority of Hispanics are Catholic.
Yeah. I'm here in Southern California, and so I'm really aware of that. There's as many Hispanics here as there are anybody else, and a lot of Catholic churches. And so I'm with you. This stuff that's traditional, that's been with us forever, all of a sudden is divisive and horrible and evil, and it's really crazy.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my dog's barking. But whenever the other thing I want to mention is these two people that were on the video, their husband and wife, and their husband and wife, and they're also the host of the show. He was once I believe a congressman from Wisconsin. And the other thing is they're both from The Real World, the TV show on MTV. That's where they got their fame from. But thing with I believe her name's Rachel. She's Hispanic, and that's why I think she didn't. That's why I think she got a little offended by it, because she knew what it was. They're trying to convince Hispanics to not go Republican, and the only way the only way mainstream media and the Democrats can do that is by pushing this narrative, supposedly that the Trump and Republicans are nationalists. Or I'm surprised they didn't go with white nationalists, but then you couldn't include Hispanics at that point. But,
that's right. It's all about just grouping people, and
yeah.
It's crazy. You've got all the minorities, blacks, Hispanics, women, whoever it is. They try to group them all together as if they're a monolithic group. They all think alike, and it's really kind of insulting to those groups to do that. That's what I don't understand, why the people in those groups don't say, wait a minute, we're a diverse group with intelligent people, lots of points of view, some conservative, some liberal, just like everyone else.
Yeah. I saw this video the other day, and it made me laugh because this guy was going around to this college campus and asking questions. Hey, and perfect example is, how the big narrative is, if you ask for an ID to go vote, that's racist.
Yeah.
Well, he's like this, do you think it's racist to ask for an ID when you go and vote? And all these kids at these college centers, like, yeah, they're like, just because majority of African Americans don't have IDs. That's what they're saying. And then the guy decides to go to like Harlem and ask the same questions. And they're like this, why would they think we don't have IDs? How do you think I could buy alcohol and cigarettes and get on a plane and so on and so forth? Of course I got to have an ID. He's like, and one of them got asked, okay, if they asked you for an ID when you go and vote, would you think it was racist? Like, no. They just want to know who I am.
Well, it's actually kind of insulting. It's like, are you saying they're too stupid to just get an ID and have a driver's license and follow the rules? I'd be really insulted if I was one of those people. It's crazy.
The faces on some of their faces, they were given like, what? I think a couple of them were insulted. Like, do I look stupid? You know? And the thing is, when it comes to also, their point when it comes to why they're attacking religion because of Marxism and communism, and they're pretty much right about that. Look, I mean, China's a perfect example of that, where they're going after people that are a part of religious minorities. Perfect example is the Uyghurs. And also, I think the Vendong, they're Buddhist sect of the, they went after them as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I know about China right now, they have one of the largest Christian churches in the world that's underground.
Right. That's right. Yeah. The church in China is really persecuted. The Chinese government is trying to change the Bible in their official Christian church. But, it's crazy. What does the Bible say? As persecution increases, people's faith is just going to get stronger.
Yep.
So that's going to be a really powerful church for Christ, even though it's underground and persecuted.
Yeah.
It's probably a stronger church than a lot of what we have here.
Oh, yeah. It seems like the more people are persecuted, the stronger they get, and in their religious faith. But I completely agree. And I think as a society, we have a duty to actually come out and represent them. Unfortunately, our government hasn't done that enough when it comes to dealing with China, especially with what's going on with the Uyghur Muslims, as well as and also the Vendong. We haven't done enough with China when it comes to going after them for what they have done. And after World War II, we said this will never happen again, and it is.
All it takes is one generation to forget it.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to say one thing, Matt, that I feel really strongly about. It's really easy as Christians for us to be involved in politics and worry about all this stuff and be concerned with this stuff. And it's necessary. It's important. We need to be educated. But there's a couple of things that are more spiritual, that are more personal, that we need to be doing. I know I can go my whole day and get upset about this stuff and not sit down and pray about it.
Yeah.
And the power of prayer is a real thing. And I have been in the last, I'm 66 years old, and just in the last year or so, I've finally set aside time every day, read my Bible and pray like I should have always done, and try to pray during the day. And the other thing too is that I want to say is that when we're arguing with somebody, when we're debating someone, we as a Christian, we should be the best listeners. We should be the ones that are caring for these people and not just arguing. So when we're debating someone, it's really important to slow down, make it personal, find out from them, what is your story? Why, I have a friend who says, I don't care about what you believe as much as why you believe it. Get their story. How did you come to these positions? And a lot of times, if people are just listened to and heard and feel cared about, it makes it much easier in the conversation to settle down and get to the real issues and care about each other as people. I sort of have a mantra that I have. I say, I don't want to sacrifice a relationship for a position.
Yeah. It's very important to try to find common ground as well, instead of just yelling and screaming at each other and not listening.
Yeah. And if we're doing that as Christians, then we're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be sharing the love of Christ, being involved with people on a personal basis, trying to understand them, be good listeners, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And if we really just adopted that as, okay, I'm going to do that no matter how heated this gets, we'd be in much better shape. Because how do you actually change someone's mind? Think about it. Do you argue with them and push, or do you listen to them and care about them as a human being? And over time, you're able to influence them with the love of Christ. Yeah. That's really where we should be focused. But we're just jumping in many cases like everybody else, and just fighting on the level that the world fights.
Yeah, that seems to be not working. I mean, a perfect example of someone that I think that changed their mind because of what you're saying. Someone went at them at a different perspective and changed their minds. And Dave Rubin's a perfect example of that. Dave Rubin, he was actually on TYT, or Young Turks, for a long time, and now he's got his own show, and he's considered a right winger. And I don't consider him that. I consider him very middle of the road, but he's also gay, and I understand a lot of people in conservative circles as well as Christian circles don't like the idea of that, but we still need to be able to talk to him and talk to him civilly, even though we disagree with his lifestyle. But we can find agreements with him when it comes to political ideas. And I think he's a perfect example of where not only conservatives need to go, but also Christians need to go when it comes to talking to people that might not agree with everything you say politically or religiously.
Yeah. Try to understand first. Try to love first.
Yeah.
Hear the person. It's a much harder battle. It's one-on-one. It takes a lot of work. It takes focus. But that's the way that Christ gave us. Yeah. That's the only way that actually works.
Walk a mile in their shoes, and then you'll find out. Maybe you'll look at things a little differently in their perspective, or they might try to convince them to walk a mile in your shoes, and they might see it differently as well.
Yeah. I have a longtime friend who's Christian, Catholic, much more liberal than I, and we have developed a conversation style where we can talk to each other and disagree with each other, and it's a really wonderful thing. We all need people like that. I don't want my world, my personal world, to be just with people I agree with. I want to have people that I disagree with, that I can talk to, that I can debate with, partly because that's what we're supposed to be doing, is sharing Christ, but partly too, how am I going to learn anything if I talk to people that I agree with all day long?
Yeah. The other thing is, if you agree with everybody, it's going to be boring conversations.
Yeah.
You want to have interesting conversations, and the only way you're going to have that is if you have disagreements on certain things, and you could talk it out and see where they're coming from, and they can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, let's be Christians. What's the Christian attitude here? Let's not forget who we are. We're followers of Christ. Let's do this the way Jesus gave us to do it. We have to. Here's the funny thing. Here's the question. How do you love somebody when you don't even like them? Okay, but that's what we're called to do, right?
Yeah.
We can disagree with them. They can be snarky, and they cheat in their conversations, and we don't like their lifestyle, but we don't get to judge them. And I know that in my head, that's the first thing I want to do. They're just a loser. They don't get it. Why don't they understand? They're not a Christian. No, I should be thinking they're created in God's image, just like me. And if I had their circumstances of life, I might be in exactly the same place, and I need to listen to them. I need to care for them. I need to pray for them. And that's a real thing. That's the real world way of dealing with this stuff.
Well said. I completely agree. And we got some comments here from Bonnie. God Almighty instituted government to protect the people. Politics has corrupted that. Yep.
You know the word public servant, Matt? We hear that phrase bandied about, but the founders, that phrase has been around since the beginning of our country. And the servant side of that is the side that's lost. And that really came from the biblical concept of the leader, in our case, Christ, coming not to rule, but to serve. So public servant was a phrase that was based in biblical ideas.
Yeah. Most of the politicians nowadays, they seem to be serving themselves instead of serving their constituents or the people they represent.
Well, that's the natural human way of doing it, isn't it? You get in power and you take advantage of the power. And so we shouldn't be surprised that all of this is happening as we lose kind of contact with, biblical ways of thinking. It's just going to slide to what every government on earth has ever been that's not following the Bible. We shouldn't be surprised at what's happening.
Yeah, power corrupts. Perfect example of that is Nancy Pelosi. She's from California. You're in California, aren't you?
I'm in California. I'm right in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was watching one show, and they were talking about her and how she's been in government for, I think, 30 years. And when she got in, she was worth $3 million. And now, by the end of 2018, she was at 114 million.
Wow.
And normally, when I think if you look at like past presidents, they all lost money, except for until the recent 50 years. Mm-hmm. Except for Trump. He actually, when he got into office, he was worth $4 billion, and when he left office, he was worth $1.5 billion.
Wow.
And he's the first president that actually lost money since, I believe, Eisenhower. So, but that's because they all had different attitudes about being in public service. They believe they're serving the public; they're not serving themselves. And you can say what you want about Trump. Everybody can say what they want about Trump. I understand people might not like him because of the tweets and so on and so forth. But I don't feel like when he was in there, he was serving himself, because if he was, his wealth would have went up.
That's a good point. He did. If you can get away from the rhetoric, he did a lot of really good things for the country.
Yeah.
He tried to lay a groundwork again for us to be respected by other countries.
And when it comes to I forgot where I was. Oh, Nancy Pelosi and the things that she's done while she's been in office. It's not just her. I'm not going to just go with just Democrats. There's Republicans do it too. Perfect example is Mitch McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to just throw it all on one side. It's both sides to do it. They're in it for themselves instead of trying to help other people. Another group of people that believe in service a lot, believe in service at one time, was to summarize. I mean, what does summarize mean? It means to serve.
You mean the Japanese?
Yeah,
descent?
Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. It's a rare thing in human history for people in power to not take advantage of it. That's just the way people are. And that's why, Jesus's message, we're just steeped in the Bible as Christians in the West, but his message was really subversive at the time. The idea that you have all the power in the world, God Almighty can do anything he wants. No one can push against him. And yet he comes not to rule with a sword, but to serve and die, and suffer and die. In my way of thinking, that's such a radical, subversive idea. I don't think anybody could have made it up. I think it's true just because it's a ridiculous idea. It has to be true. No one could write that.
Yeah, I saw this one guy. I can't remember his name. He wrote this article, and he said the first radical in history was Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And he mentioned what you were talking about right there, about how radical it was to serve humanity and not care about himself, and how important that was to get Christianity where it is today. And what you have with the Marxists, socialists, and communists, they're trying to erode that a little bit. And they're even trying to say Christ was a socialist. I've heard people say that all the time. And I'm like, he believes in individuality. He made the choice to do what he did. And individuality is the most important thing to him. And of course, they don't believe that. They believe in the collective is more important than one individual.
Well, in the Bible, the New Testament especially, many people have said that it's probably the beginning of a more individual way of thought.
Yeah.
But I think we can go too far with it too. My feeling is I need all the real good friends I can get, because I make some pretty poor decisions sometimes. And I need people that are close to me to beat me on the head sometimes. It's a real balance. We can't be too much, the collective thing doesn't work. History has proven that, but we can't go too far in the individual direction either, because, God died, Christ died for other people, for people. And we need to remember that the most important things in our world are other people, not our agenda and our car and our house, but people should be our priority. Yeah. And so there's kind of a balance there that you have to find, following Christ. You can't do it all yourself. You cannot.
Yeah. It's important for communities to be involved with the people around them, and the church as well, and not rely everything on the government, because when you rely on the government, sometimes it will fail on you. So when you rely on your neighbor and rely on your community as well as the church, I believe you have more success to actually uplift people from poverty or help them progress in life.
Yeah.
I've never seen government actually be successful at that all that often.
The thing we have to remember as Christians is that this is what Jesus said is the way it's going to be. No matter how much we try, no matter how unselfish we try to be, we're never going to get government perfect. There's always going to be people and groups that fall through the cracks. That should be our starting point. Let's do the best we can. It's like people who say America is such a racist country. But have you ever traveled? Have you ever gone overseas? I've been to Japan, where when I was there were no equal rights laws. If you owned an apartment building in Japan and you were a Japanese, there was nothing at all to compel you to rent to a black person or a white person if you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a racist country. There's a lot wrong with it. Let's work on it. But what are you comparing it to? Go travel, go live in the rest of the world and see what that's like, and then come back here and say, "Oh, wow, this is still ugly, but it's a lot better than what's out there."
Yeah, Now, I got a story for you about one of my friends. Well, he used to be my friend, and I met him when I worked in the theater industry.
Mm-hmm.
And he is liberal, and I'm conservative. He's atheist, and I'm Christian.
Uh-huh.
And me and him didn't agree on much, but we were friends still because we could
Good.
find common ground when it came to all sorts of stuff, video games, we movies, stuff like that, entertainment stuff. We could find common ground, but he stopped talking to me after 2016 when I voted for Trump. And I talked to him recently, and I was like, "Why did you stop talking to me?" And he was like, "This because you're a racist." Yeah, he went with the propaganda of what he was hearing because I voted for Trump. And I told him, I was like, the reason I voted for Trump is because I couldn't vote for the person he was running against because I disagree with her and some of the things she was spouting. I was like, you didn't have a problem with me voting against Obama when it was Romney and McCain. I'm like, why do you have a problem now? And it's directly because Orange Man's bad, and I tried to talk to him about it, and I told him, I was like, I haven't changed. I'm the same person I was before, and he just told me, he's like, I don't want my kids around you and blah, 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 and all sorts of other stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, this, I remember when we were younger, I actually babysitted his kids a couple of times and helped them out and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, and all of a sudden it just changes because he doesn't see my perspective. And I talked to him about 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm like, are you understanding where my perspective was now looking at the economy? He's like, nope. He still don't understand. He's still stuck in that,
Wow.
And I was like, wow. I was like, okay. I was like, I can't do nothing for you then. I was like, all I can do is pray for you, and hopefully one day you'll see the light and understand where I'm coming from. And I was like, this, not only that, at the time I was in the oil field, and I was like, I can't vote against myself, against my paycheck, my paycheck's oil field. And I knew what Biden was saying, which was similar to what Obama was saying about the coal mines. And I was like, I can't, there's no way, vote against your paycheck. That's dumb. That's dumb. Why would I do that?
Going back to what he calls you a racist, that is such that word just stops the conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's, I always want to say, well, what are you talking about? What does racist mean? How am I a racist? I've never been called a racist, but I would try to get into that and say, what are you talking about? Because otherwise we just call each other names and put up the wall and pull our swords out and never get to anything substantial. And it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when he called me, my first reaction was like, how am I a racist?
Right.
Just because I voted for this person? I was like, that's like me calling you a racist because you won't vote for a guy that's orange, and I was like, explain to me how because we've known each other for 15 years, how in the time we've known each other have I been a racist?
Exactly. What me.
Yeah. And he couldn't explain. He just couldn't explain except for who I voted for. And I was like, that don't mean nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, it's ridiculous. And I told him, I was like, well, whenever you're ready to talk to me again, give me a call and I'll talk to you. I got the door open always.
Yeah.
And I'm like this. I'm not the one shutting this. You're the one shutting it. So
good for you. And pray for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pray for him. I've got a list of people I pray for every day that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but it actually makes a difference. My sister-in-law had cancer. I've been praying for her every day, along with like 48,000 other people, and it's gone. The cancer's gone. It's like, when the Lord chooses to do this, prayer really, really makes a difference. We cannot underestimate the power of prayer. We hear it, it's such a cliche, but it's actually true.
Yeah.
We all need to be doing this every day. It's the only thing that keeps me humble.
Well, we got 20 seconds left. I'm going to remind everybody to check out our newsletter at www.thiswaynetwork.com. Ross will be back on next week. I believe, and hopefully we'll get the PowerPoint ready so you guys can watch it.
Good.
Ross, you got the last word.
Thanks, Matt. This was fun. We winged it.
Yep.
All right. I'll talk to you. Bye.